Hello guys, it's the Canadian Space Nerd here, and I'm really excited for this series. So I'm putting a new series on this channel. It's me practically dissecting a whole bunch of rockets. So any rocket I think about or I want to do, I will dissect it piece by piece and tell you everything there is to know about it. So this rocket doesn't have to be previously flown. For example, this one we're doing Space X BFR. Hasn't flown yet, going to in around 2020, 2022 maybe. But for now, it hasn't flown yet, but upcoming rockets still count for this. I will also do tons of previously flown rockets like the Saturn V, Atlas V, Falcon 9, all of those rockets. So yeah, here we go. Let's dissect this BFR. Now, to start off, it's worth noting that eventually the BFR will make the whole Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and Dragon obsolete. Practically what their sort of philosophy is one rocket to rule them all. And the reason why they are getting rid of the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy and Dragon is because mainly funding. It's tough to fund a rocket when you don't have the funds. So if they put all their BFR funding, or all their Falcon funding to the BFR, that's about $850 million a year right there. And so, yeah, and so they have a lot more money. And what they're planning on doing is they're planning on stockpiling their Falcon Heavy and Falcon rockets. So if somebody doesn't feel quite comfortable riding on the BFR, and it's just their first flight, they'll have tons of these rockets stockpiled so they can hitch a ride on the Falcon 9 if they feel they want to. Now, you may remember they announced the interplanetary transport system last year, and this BFR is practically an upgraded version of that, but just less powerful. This is part of the funding. They can't really have as powerful of a rocket with their current funding, so they downgraded it. And the interplanetary transport system, I believe it could launch like a whopping like 300 tons to the Earth orbit in reusable mode. That would be the most powerful rocket ever. And this new BFR still will be the most powerful rocket ever, except it can only launch 150 tons, not 300 tons. So about half the power of the old BFR, of the interplanetary transport system. Now, the BFR will be able to return 50 tons to Earth after it launches. That's a maximum of 50 tons. And the rocket is still really big, not quite as big as the Saturn V, except its total length is 106 meters tall, with the booster being 58 meters, and the spaceship shuttle part being a whopping 48 meters. So the spaceship is actually almost as big as the booster. It's actually really cool. In fact, the spaceship is bigger than most rockets nowadays, I'd say. Most rockets in history, the spaceship is even bigger than. So that's pretty crazy. Now, in terms of engines, this thing has a whole lot of horsepower. And so the actual BFR booster has 31 Raptor engines, which, if you don't know what the Raptor engine is, it's the engine that SpaceX is making. They've been working on it for a while. They actually got a contract from the US Air Force to help them work on it. It's actually going to be a really efficient engine, and they're planning on being able to reuse this engine about like 1,000 times. And so that's really important for a reusable rocket, because if you land it, you of course want to be able to reuse it. So this is probably going to be the most advanced rocket engine ever. And the spaceship part of it will have three sea level engines and 4 vacuum engines. And by the way, the booster is all sea level engines. But yeah, the vacuum engines are a bit more powerful. And yeah, this thing will have, the booster will have 52.7 millinewtons of thrust. If you don't know how much that is in pounds, It's 11,800,000 pounds of thrust, which is absolutely insane. And then the spaceship will have 12.7 millinewtons of thrust, which is still insane. And in pounds, that's 2,900,000 pounds of thrust, which, once again, insane. Now, like I said before, this rocket is practically going to do everything. So to put that into perspective, things that a rocket does, the main one is putting up satellites. This thing can really put up any satellite you want, from the smallest satellite to really the biggest satellites ever launched. They say Elon Musk said you could launch the Hubble Space Telescope in one launch with the satellite. I'm assuming it's the same with the James Webb Space Telescope. This thing could obviously be launched in one launch. But the Hubble Space Telescope actually took lots of launches to get up. This rocket could have launched it in one launch. And then what else it can do is this, of course, going to supply the space station if it's, for the end of its lifespan. It's going to connect to it because it's making the Falcon 9 and Dragon obsolete, so of course then the BFR will have to resupply with it. It's, Elon Musk had also hinted at a moon base, which, that makes sense. If you have a rocket that's powerful, why not go to the moon? He wants to set up a permanent moon base, and then of course go into Mars. That's the main purpose of this rocket, to go to Mars. And yeah, that is what he is going to do, go to Mars with it. Now practically this rocket is going to be insanely cheap. It's pretty extreme what they're trying to do. So they want to get this rocket anywhere from $5 million to $10 million per launch. I think that's what the numbers were, which that's insane. For example, the Falcon 9 cost $62 million. Falcon 1, a really unpowerful rocket, I think its maximum payload it got into space is like 250 kilograms. So really weak. And that cost $7 million to launch. So that just shows how expensive or how cheap this rocket will be. So how they want to do that is they need to make it fully reusable. So they need to be able to reuse it up to thousands of times, which that's why they're making the Raptor engine. Land it, reuse it, and keep on doing that. Both parts of the spaceship are reusable, both of the rocket and actual shuttle part. But that isn't all you need. You actually need the right propellant. So of course they chose methane, because there's lots of methane on Mars, and it's just a good fuel as well. And also, he mentioned fueling in orbit. So practically what the rockets are going to do is they are going to, one's going to go into orbit, and then a tanker is going to go behind it. And the tanker will sort of connect at the back, because the engines will touch, and then they will connect, then they'll accelerate in the direction, and then the fuel will go from the tanker into the spaceship once they accelerate. It's a pretty, it's going to be a pretty revolutionary process. I can't wait to actually see that happen, and I hope it works out well for them. Now, Elon has said he's planning on getting the first cargo missions to Mars in 2022, followed by the first crew missions in 2024. Now those goals are, he actually said himself, the aspirational goals. They're not sure if they're going to meet it, but that's where they're going for. They want to meet that goal. And of course I hope they do it, but I have to remain optimistic. That will be pretty tough to do. But once again, I wish for them the best. I hope they do it. If anybody can do it, it's SpaceX. So we do have to remember, they have had their fair share of delays with the Falcon Heavy, which really, those aren't really fair comparisons, because the Falcon Heavy was way more complicated than they thought. I think the BFR won't be nearly as complicated as it. But yeah, the Falcon Heavy, super complicated rocket, way more complicated than they thought, but I hope they can make it there in 2024, first people on Mars. That would be epic. Now the BFR is also planning on doing Earth-to-Earth transportation, and actually competing with the airliners. Now this actually makes me really optimistic because I say this is almost more ambitious than Mars. But once again, like I said before, if anybody can do it, it's SpaceX. They actually made a video on it. And practically, it's anywhere to Earth in under an hour, most places in under 30 minutes. And so, practically, they would go in this rocket, you would go off the coast of a city, or like just, yeah, off the coast of a city. Usually, you can have a launch pad set up in a lake or in the ocean, or maybe even a city that is near the coast. Maybe you will launch them in on like just like out the plains in a field nearby, and so they will launch you up, take you into space, then you will land back down on another city. I think it was like from New York to Shanghai in 39 minutes, which is pretty insane. So yeah, but the main problem with this is the legal issues. First of all, it will be pretty loud. It won't be that loud because the rocket will be quite a ways off from the coast, so it won't be really that loud compared to some things. Like I say, it will be just as loud as the train for how far out it is. It's probably just like living near a train station. I think it might be a bit more loud, except it's so far out, it won't be much more louder. Except the main issue is you're practically flying a rocket over top of a city, then landing it right down the side of another city. SpaceX has really perfected the landings, except failures do happen. It would be pretty dangerous at this point to send civilians in a rocket. Quite a few people have died in space from rocket failures, and it just isn't really the safest business yet, but once again, it is getting a lot safer, and I hope SpaceX is once they pull this off. It would be super cool, and I truly do think they will pull it off. It might be closer to like 2040 when they actually achieve this, maybe like 2035, but I hope they do pull this off. It would be really cool flying in a rocket to like London or something, from like Canada to London. That'd be pretty cool. So yeah. Now this 9-meter wide rocket is what I believe is what rockets should have been like years ago. SpaceX is the company that is revolutionizing the space industry and making it actually better. It's been a while since there's been a competition pushing to make this industry better, and SpaceX is doing that. They land the rockets, they reuse the rockets, they reuse the spacecraft, and they're making it just a whole lot cheaper to get to space, which I do truly hope they will achieve with the BFR. And so that was the video. Hope you like it. My next rocket, I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I have a few videos like the Saturn V. There's this rocket called Cyclone 4M. I'm pretty interested in that rocket just because it's launched in Canada and Nova Scotia, which that's where I'm from. I'm not from Nova Scotia, I'm from Canada, but still a rocket in Canada is pretty cool. Or I might even do something simple like the Atlas V. Don't think I'm going to do a SpaceX rocket next video since that's what I'm doing now. But if you guys have any suggestions on what rocket you want me to dissect, let me know down below in the comment section. And I will see you folks in the next video. Peace out.